I think that if they have a legitimate shot to, if they want to compete, they're going to have to run the ball. They're going to have to run the ball well, and they're going to have to let Beck make some plays that he did back, 2 years ago when he was at Georgia. When he was at Georgia, not last year, obviously last year he dealt with some injury, but the year before, I thought he was a fantastic player. He was projected to be a first round pick. Obviously, didn't happen because of certain issues, but I think he's got a great shot to lead this team to the spot right now. And Daryl, you're 100% right again, because there were times last season where you could blame Mario for a couple of the issues. There were certain plays in the Syracuse game. There's certain plays in Georgia Tech game that you could easily look at, even in games that they won. For a lot of the Duke game where they were down big, you could notice that their offense was sputtering. You could tell that they weren't making the right plays. They were doing that. They were kind of losing chem. There was times where the offense just didn't look right at certain points of the year, and then they went nuclear, 15 minutes later. So it's all about making sure that in certain situations, like in the Georgia Tech game where they had numerous fourth down plays and they missed out, or if they had in the Cal game where they had to make that miraculous comeback. It's they definitely need to do better in certain critical situations, and I think Mario's got to learn from that. He's got to be better in those situations for sure. 1 second. There we go. Shay, you're all right?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, my laptop died.
worries.
It is. Yeah, I don't know why it just drained really fast. But yeah. Sorry. Where were we? Where were we?
You just talking about the play calling. I think we were mentioning how Daryl made a great point and Juan just made an even better point here too, that our play calls need to be better throughout most of this next season because of what happened last season. You saw it in the Syracuse game, 21-point lead, they blew it, and then in the Georgia Tech game, they had a lot of chances period to win that game, and they totally blew it. And even in the games that they won, Duke, Cal, Virginia Tech, all these games that they could have easily blew them out, they kind of didn't do what they needed to do to win.
Yeah. And I think, it's something you see when you're having such success as an offense passing that ball, is that you get a little bit greedy, you get a little bit cocky. Reference looking at the NFL, I think we saw it a little bit with Detroit during the playoffs where they got a little bit too tricky with their own game and it kind of backfired in those biggest spots. And I think this year, the one thing about having I guess more limited offense is that you can go back to those traditional pound the rock, control the ball, control time values, and then that kind of it limits the possessions of another offense. It kind of shortens the game, and it helps you kind of put wear and tear where even if you're overmatched against an offense, if they're not on the field as often, if it's taking time for them to get back on the field, then you're in a much better position. You're keeping them off the field. You're keeping the defense less stressed, and you're putting more stress on their defense. So I think going to a little more conservative of a offensive play calling kind of helps benefit the defense a little bit in some circumstances. It kind of helps you win games that even you're overmatched in.
Yep, absolutely. Anytime you can look, I said this earlier, but if you continue the pound game with Fletcher, Lyle, and everyone else that we have in that running back group, I think that it opens up back in the play action game for Daniels and JoJo and every other guy that they have in there. And I think it will better the team as itself. And I think that it falls on Mario to kind of put at least Mario's job shouldn't be to call the plays. I never want Mario to call the plays ever. I don't want Mario doing time management. I'd want Mario to do recruiting, and I want him to be a coach in terms of talking to the players and all that stuff. Play calling, no, that stuff is entirely onto the new DC. I keep forgetting his name, Corey Everman, and Shannon Dawson. Those are the guys that need to, they call the plays. They play their game in certain opportunities that Miami can easily look like that college football playoff team that we wanted last season. I think they obviously showed flashes of that, but they had Cam Ward. But think of the games that they had. Georgia Tech, they lost. Syracuse, they lost. But in the wins, Cal had to come back miraculously. Louisville was an absolute dogfight. Duke, they were down at half. They were down pretty big at half. Virginia Tech, they won on an overturned Hail Mary call. They did not, I mean, FSU sucked, but they played, they had to, I mean, they didn't play their best game of football against FSU. There are times where you look at that Miami team and you felt like they could have played way better than they really should have.